just want to introduce our speaker, Dave Roper. I'm sure many of you know him. He's an emeritus professor of Virginia Tech in physics. He was a founding member of Sustainable Blacksburg and also the designer of the Roper Greenhouse at the Hale Community Garden. So if you joined us for last month's Sustainable Garden tour, you saw the greenhouse and they're talking about it. So he is going to talk about all things electric vehicles and have his new e-trike outside for people to see and some electric vehicles. Right, Dave? Yeah. Okay, great. So that would give you Dave Roper, and please stay around too to see the demonstration after the program. Thank you.
Okay, I'll just start by saying I'm an octogenarian, so my voice sometimes wears out on me. I'll do what I can. At the top of this, you'll see a URL, tinyurl.com/beds long trips. You write that down, all the slides are on that online, so you can see them at home if you want to. Okay, these are various terms that I'm going to be using throughout this talk, so I hope you have them memorized by now. My name is L. David Roper. I go with David. The red car is the car I now drive. It's my 5th electric car. I started in 2007 with electric cars. They're pretty bad then. They're super duper now. This one is a May 2018 Tesla Model 3 long range rear wheel drive. The new Model 3s are almost all wheel drives, the bigger ones. It's a 300 miles range car approximately, and I have over 47,000 miles on it. It has an estimated efficiency of 130 miles per gallon. They call that effective electric miles per gallon. It'll get extremely efficient. It costs about a third the run as a gasoline car. If you want to contact me, you have further questions, time to go on, there's my email. Also, you can feel free to interrupt me when I'm talking. Maybe we can make it a discussion as well as a talk. So if you're behind me and I don't see you scream or something, when you hold up your hand. Okay, let me just go through these briefly. These are things that remember. ICEV is an internal combustion engine. That's a gasoline car or diesel car. Example, Honda Civic, which makes about 32 miles per gallon. The HEV is a hybrid electric vehicle. It's an ICEV plus about a 1 kilowatt-hour lithium-ion battery. In the case of the Toyota Prius, which gives you about 56 miles per gallon. So they're better than them. They're more complicated, but they're better than the gasoline car. I call both of these kinds of cars 20th century cars. My cars are 21st century cars. Okay. Then you have PHEVs. It's an ICEV, it's called a plug-in hybrid electric vehicle. It's an ICEV plus about 20 kilowatt-hour battery and a plug. So you can charge the battery at home. And instead of a hybrid, the battery is charged by gasoline. The gasoline engine charges the battery, so it's not an electric car. You only get the electric when you get the PHEV. And then an example of that is the Toyota RAV4 Prime or the Prius Prime. The RAV4 Prime is 42 miles electric. So when you charge it up, it will go 42 miles electric before the gasoline engine starts. Unless you really accelerate fast. It typically is 38 to 94 miles per gallon, averaging about 67 miles per gallon. But this is an SUV, a small SUV. My wife drives a RAV4 hybrid. The BEV, and that's my car and other fully electric cars, or sometimes they're called, or battery electric vehicle. Typically, they have an 80 kilowatt-hour battery and a plug. So you can charge them. Of course, you have to be able to charge them. For example, the Model 3, the new Model 3s are rated at 131 miles per gallon electric. People often use the term EV, and that includes both PHEV and BEV. So if someone says they want to sell you the EV, be careful. They may want to sell you a PHEV and not a BEV. They might even want to sell you a hybrid. Some dealers call hybrids electric cars. They are not electric cars. They have an electric motors, but the electric motor is supplied by battery charged by the gas line. Okay, some terms you need to remember, I'll use a lot, is kilowatt hour, that's the battery energy. If you look at your electric bill at home, it's always in kilowatt hours. Right now, we're paying about 13 cents with APCO, we're paying about 13 cents a kilowatt hour. And nice thing about electricity, the rate is pretty steady. It's not like gasoline where it goes up and down. It stays pretty steady. So you know what it's going to cost you to travel. And then the kilowatt is the important thing. That's power. It's the battery charging power. You have to charge these batteries and then you need this battery charging power, kilowatt. And then another term is state of charge. It's important how much charge your battery has. When it's zero, you're empty and you can't go anywhere. So 0 to 100% is SOC. So I'll use SOC occasionally. If you burn a typical gallon of gasoline, it creates about 33.7 kilowatt hours. So that relates kilowatt hours to the power, to the energy in gasoline when you burn it. For example, to calculate this MPGE I talk about up there, you multiply this 33.7 times the number of miles per kilowatt hour your car will travel. My car does about 3.5 to 4, depending on how I drive it and what the situation is, you know, mountains or whatever. So that's how you get that 130 miles per gallon. So you multiply the miles per kilowatt hour times 33.7. So that's the importance of it. Okay, I have a lot more slides here than I probably cover in an hour. And that's the reason I'm giving you this URL at the top. Because I probably won't get to them all, but when you get home, you forget them all. Okay, the first question people usually ask, what would be your first question? Anybody?
Why should I buy one?
Huh?
Why should I buy one?
Okay, that's a good question. It's not the first question. Not the first question I usually get. Yeah, that's right. How long does it take to charge it? That's one of the big questions people have. Answer is it's not a relevant. Relevant question is, can you drive a BEV on long trips without long delays charging? That's the real situation. And the answer is yes. If it is a BEV with over 250 miles range, mine's had about 300, so I'm okay. That has an extensive and reliable, and underlying this is important, an extensive and reliable fast charging network on the highways. For example, Tesla is the standard for this. Tesla has this. It's the only car company that has it. You just heard about that. The others are really close. They're working hard. And very soon Tesla's going to open up their charging stations to other cars. And when that happens, all electric cars will have super, more than gasoline stations in order to travel. Okay. And so what are some important differences between BEV charging stations and gasoline stations? For local and regional driving, most BEVs usually are charged at what we call level 2 chargers. It has a name called J1772 or a Tesla. There are two of them. One of them is standard for other electric cars, J1772 and the Tesla plug. They're both 240 volts and they vary between 7 and 16 kilowatts AC. This alternating current. You know, I have one of these in my garage. I have the J172, and then I have an adapter so I can do my Tesla. So it's in driveways, in garages, mine's in my garage, in streets, parking lots, and workplaces. Home charging is a big deal. I charge my car about 98% of the time. And I always ask my friends, can you put gasoline in your car 98% of the time at home? Okay, so it's a really big deal that you charge it at home. I estimate, as I said, 98%. Some of these are charged using a standard electric outlet. That's called level 1. That's 120, your standard 120 volts. There's several of them in here. If I had my car in here, I could plug my car into that. But it's really, really slow. it's 1.4 kilowatts. You compare that to mine at home, which is 10 kilowatts, it's 10 times slower than the 240 volt one I have in my garage. I've never used it. I do know people who have. I know people that have electric cars, they only use it to drive it to work, maybe it's 40 miles a day. They plug it in to 120 at night, leave it charging 12 hours while they're at home and asleep. Time it's ready to go the next day, they got enough to go to work and back. And if they have a charging station at work, then they're really good shape. Okay, so there's an inexpensive portable charger for this very slow charger. Many businesses and other locations have level 2 chargers available for public use in public parking lots. There are in the Blacksburg area, I think about 10 or 12 of these. Some of them are private, but some of them aren't. For example, there are 2 at the gasoline station on University Boulevard. There are others around Blacksburg. Several in Christiansburg too. I've helped several businesses install these. Okay. This greatly reduces the number. So you've got all these slow charging things. I call this one up there, the top one's sort of a medium charge. What you want on the highway is really fast charge. You want more, you want like 100 kilowatts or 200 kilowatts or maybe 350 kilowatts. But you don't need nearly as many of those as you need gasoline stations because you charge at home, you charge at other places, and you don't need as many. And so that makes it easier to rely on these fast chargers. So these are called level 3, and they're 50 to 350 kilowatts. The Tesla superchargers are, the older ones are 150 kilowatts, and the newer ones are 250 kilowatts. Blacksburg is going to get a sheet station soon, First and Main. That First and Main will have 8 charging stalls for Teslas. They will be 250 kilowatts. It'll be really fast charging. I don't need that because I charge at home. But if I had somebody come and visit me, or if my power were out at home and the power is not out at First and Main, I could go First and Main to charge. Okay. Okay, here's a really important curve. You may not like curves and graphs. It shows the difference between a gasoline car and an electric car. When you pull in a gasoline station and turn it on, it puts gasoline in your tank at the same rate from start to finish. But that doesn't happen in an electric car. The red curve shows how fast it's doing. That's the kilowatts, the power. You can see it's really fast at first, and then it dies off. It takes as long to go. Let's see, I have this somewhere here. Let's go on. There it is. It takes as long to go from 0 to 80 as it takes to go from 80 to 100. So when you're out on the road, you don't want to have your car really fast, highly charged. It's going to take you longer to charge it up more. It's better to have a low charge, low state of charge when you charge it, then it charges it fast. Okay. So the red curve is the charging power in kilowatts. The blue curve is state of charge, and it can be in percent or in kilowatt hours or range. And they're all labeled on this particular curve. This is a curve for Tesla Model 3 2017. So the power rapidly declines. The physical reason why to not charge near 100%. The only time you want to charge 100% is before you leave home on an overnight trip, or at a hotel where you stayed overnight. And I used to stay at a hotel that has a charging station, and Tesla has put in charging stations. There's hundreds of hotels across the United States free to the hotel. So I could find those by an app called plugshare.com. Or the hotel can be near a supercharger. Either one is fine. There's one in Jackson, Tennessee, that's near a supercharger, and I often stop there when I'm going to Oklahoma, Texas.
Is the charger free to you or just free to the hotel?
It's free to the hotel in terms of the buying. They don't have to buy it.
But then
They have to pay
but they-
for
they're
that.
going to
But
charge you.
typically, I don't know of any hotels that charge people to stay at a hotel to use a charger.
Oh.
This is the big difference between a gas car and a BEV. So you need to understand that if you're going to get a BEV. Also, by not charging near 100%, the battery lasts longer. If you charge the battery 100% a lot, battery decays faster. Batteries do decay. My car started out at 310, it's now down to about 295 after 47,000 miles. It goes faster at first, and then it sort of levels it off. I expect my car battery, by the time it hits 200,000 miles, will have maybe 10% less charge. So when you buy a car, you have to think, if I'm going to keep this car for 200 or 300 miles, and by the way, electric cars, some of them go 500,000 miles. Sometimes they change the battery to get there.
I think remember it's hybrid, but he doesn't hardly ever drives at least probably had it 10 years at least, but he has to replace this big expensive battery like twice because he doesn't drive it that much. Is that something that?
He had to change the battery, you said?
Yeah, and it's just kind of because he didn't drive it, it's just.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, I've heard that on hybrids. The hybrid, most hybrid batteries until recently had different kind of batteries. They had what's called a nickel metal hydride battery. Only one I know of that now has a lithium-ion battery is the RAV4 Prime and the Prius Prime. All the others have the nickel. That's a different kind of chemistry, and it behaves differently than lithium-ion. Lithium-ion is the kind of battery we all use now, and it's a tremendous improvement overall. This is my 5th electric car, and the first electric car had lead acid batteries. If you've been having lead acid battery, you know how horrible that is. And so then I had lithium-ion batteries, but they weren't as good as the ones now. They just kept getting better every time I got into it. Okay. So let's understand. Yeah. Can you talk loud? I'm sorry, my hearing is not very good. I'm going to talk about that as later on. My experience and how this all works out. Okay, let's understand why this happens with batteries. Charging batteries is like filling a stadium. If you ever go to the football game here, you know, if you get there early, they'll take you long to find your seat. You get there just as the game's starting, you have a heck of a time finding your seat. It takes you a lot longer. And that's what's called the stadium effect. The stadium effect occurs with charging a battery. The battery could be charged at low state of charge, then slows down. So think how quick a stadium feels like when the doors first open. There are many open seats, so it's easy to find. Eventually, there are only a few open seats here and there, and people have to maneuver around, find the spot. When they get there, somebody's already sitting there. So we have to find another seat. You know, the electrons don't have a place to sit. They're just looking for a place. I mean, they don't have a specific place. They're just looking for places. So it's the same situation applies to charging batteries. It is easy for electrons to flow from the battery's anode to the cathode and take up empty space at low state of charge. As time goes on and less space is available, it takes longer with the electrons to fill in the space. Here's space, it's a missing electron slot in the metal oxide. Actually, these electrons aren't moving by themselves, they're moving in ions typically. So kind of lithium. Okay, what is my experience? I've driven my, way back in 2018, after I got my car, I drove it to Central Texas. When I got in the car, it told me I needed to charge 4 times, I think it said, to get to Texas. And I saw, oh, that's 200 miles between charges. I can't drive that long. I'm 86.5 miles years old. I need to stop more often. So I tend to stop about 50% more than the car wants to stop. Now, if you have a 200-mile car, that'd be a different situation. I have a 300-mile car. Of course, it costs less to buy a 200-mile car than a 300-mile, so you have to make that. Okay, I went to Central Florida twice, in 2019 and in 2020. Typical thing, it's about the same distance, about 1,100 miles, 1,200 miles, these trips. And then I went to Family Union. I'm from Oklahoma. I went to Family Union in Central Oklahoma in 21. Again, no problem. I was afraid there's going to be a problem between Little Rock, Arkansas and Oklahoma City where I was going because there weren't any charging stations. And the car told me, don't drive more than 70 miles an hour to get there. Typically, I drive 5 miles an hour. If it's 75, I drive 80. If it's 70, I drive 75. It always amazed me that I can do that in a battery car. So I kept looking at plugshare.com, hoping that, and I also looked up in Shasta, and they said they were going to build one on the border between Oklahoma and Missouri. Oh, that'd be great. That's exactly what I need. Well, when I went on the trip, they had built 2 within 50 miles of each other near the border. So I was okay. So you do have to, in the early days, you have to worry a little bit. Now I don't think you have to worry at all. Tesla's building 2 of these a day now, 2 superchargers a day. They typically have 8 slots in each one, 8 stops in each one. And one of their building is going to be in Blackburn. I noticed they're building another one in Lexington. They already have one in Lexington. Now they're building another one at a Sheet Station in Lexington. Okay, this is possible because of the range. A 300 miles car and a reliable Tesla supercharger at less than 150 miles. Actually, I think they're getting closer to 100 mile average instead of 150 miles. And Tesla has this wonderful thing called plug and charge. All I do is when I pull in, I plug it in, I walk away. That's all I need to do. I don't have to have a credit card. I don't have to have an app. In a lot of cars, you have to have an app or you use a credit card. Because my car knows my credit card. My car is communicating with Tesla all the time while I'm driving. And they're collecting data on my car and understanding how safe it is. They don't know it's me, but by looking at all the Teslas out there, the millions of them, now there are 3 million Teslas in the world. And they can see how safe they are. They see the wrecks that occur, and they know if you have your autopilot on, is it safer if you don't? And the answer is yes. They have enough data to say it. So let's plug and charge. It's wonderful. Some of the other car companies are beginning to do that. Tesla's been the standard that everybody's trying to emulate, and they're gradually doing that, and they have to because Tesla's so much. The thing they haven't been able to emulate that Tesla's so far ahead of, Tesla doesn't have dealers. You ever deal with a car dealer? You don't deal with a car dealer with Tesla. You do everything online. And a lot of car dealers are doing really terrible things. For example, have you heard the new Ford F-150 electric pickup truck? A lot of car dealers are doubling the cost of one of those for the sold to you. Some of them are putting 10,000, some are putting 50,000, some are putting I've heard of 1 or 2 to putting 150,000. Well, that's what it costs. So they can do that, except that the companies are beginning to say, you can't do that, or we won't send you any more cars. So maybe they'll quit. So Tesla plans to open the superchargers to other BEVs this year in the United States. They've already done it in about 7 European countries. But possibly with not with plug and charge. I don't think they'll have plug and charge. They'll have to have an app and an adapter to fit Tesla. So when the other cars pull into a Tesla station, they'll have to pull up their app. They'll have to bring up the Tesla app, and then they'll have to go and put an adapter on the core before they pick up the car. So it's not nearly as convenient, but they still can do it. Whoops, what did I do wrong? I pressed the wrong button. How do I get out of this? There we go. I pressed the other button. Okay. Here are some of the affordable mid-size BEVs that can take long trips. The question is, do they have a reliable charging network? That's the question you have to ask when you go in to buy a car. I'm going to talk a little bit what to do when you go to buy a car. You make sure it will take you where you want to go. Okay, Tesla 3, Tesla Y. I'm just talking about the mid-size, not the big ones. The Ford Mustang Mach-E, the Volkswagen ID4, the Volvo XC40 Recharge, Polestar 2. I understand there's a Polestar in town now. An Audi Q4 e-tron. And all of these car companies are coming out with more cars very quickly. Details about these cars are at the end of all my talks. So if I don't get to them talking today, you can look at them at home.
There's a related question from the audience on Zoom. So are there resources for a list of vehicles that qualify for the new legislation that offers tax incentives?
Well, the new legislation. Tesla, when you buy a Tesla right now, you get no tax credits because they sold over 200,000 cars in the United States. Once you got past 200,000, mine was just barely under. I got when I bought it in 2018. But Tesla now will be able to come January 1. You'll be able to get the $7,500 tax credit from Tesla. The GM also, GM has sold more electric, more than 200,000, including the old Volt, VOLT, and they had the Volt, VOLT, which is all electric. The Volt was plug-in hybrid. So the GM will be able to, so if you buy a Volt EV or the Volt EUV or the new, what do they call it? They're coming out with a lower price card. I forgot the name. Anyway, when you buy those after the first, you'll be able to get the $7,500 tax credit. Yeah, so basically all the car companies after January 1st that have batteries large enough, they have to be over 18 kilowatt hours. If they're less, you get it, it's prorated, the tax credit. Okay, so Tesla has the Tesla plug. Most other BEVs have what's called the CCS, or the combined charging system plug. And the plug adapter is required to use both types of fast chargers. So one of the things Tesla's going to do when they open up the superchargers to other cars, they're going to also provide adapters for Teslas so they can use all the other charging stations that aren't Tesla. So with all electric cars will be able to use all charging stations. And that would be great. That's the way it should be. It's too bad we have two different Teslas came first. They had to come up with something, and they came up with the best, it turns out. Everybody that knows this business say they're best compared to the others. But the others are taking over all of the car companies, just like what was the Betamax and VHS. Some people say the Betamax is better, but VHS won. It's like marketing. Okay, so here's what to do. Find the desired BEV. For example, if you want a Mach-E, Mustang Mach-E, my daughter thought that was a beautiful car, and she kind of wanted that. And so she went in and she did what I'm telling you here, and she decided not to get it. She decided to get a Tesla Model Y, which she loves. Okay, so find this desired BEV either at a dealer, God help you, or at a friend's place. Start the onboard navigation. All of them have onboard navigation. The question is it up to date, the onboard navigation? Tesla has over-the-air updates, and so my navigation is always up to date from Tesla. Set up navigation to a place several hundred miles away you would likely want to visit, maybe your parents' house. Also plan 1,000-mile trips in case you ever want to take those trips like I took. So set up the navigation for that. See what happens. See what the BEV screen shows where and how long to charge at each charging location. And what happened to my daughter when she went to the Ford place and got in a Mach-E, she said, I want to go to Texas. And that's where her daughter lives, my granddaughter. And she saw the places, and all of a sudden it got over to Arkansas and said, oh, you have to go up here 50 miles off your road, and then you'll have to go back 50 miles in order to get to where you want to go. So they didn't have enough charging stations for the CCS type to get it. Probably they do now, because they've been building them pretty fast. But just to be sure, if you're looking at something that's not, you don't have to worry about Tesla. If you're looking at something like Tesla, be sure and go try it out and see if it can get you where you want to go. And you might try several different places because maybe different situations. Okay. Compare the route selected, the route you prefer to travel. And if the BU is not a Tesla, compare it to the same trip in a Tesla. If you can't find a friend that has a Tesla, you can always ask me. Yeah. Again, you're gonna have to talk about it. Vince, can you help me or somebody help me?
He's asking, don't you have lines building up at the chargers once you think?
I've
there'll be
never
more
had that.
cars?
In California, they've had that problem. They also have lines building at gasoline stations in California. But
I don't know.
yeah, but they build them so fast in California, they have charging stations there with, I think, nearly 100 charging stalls. And the interesting thing about it is, I'm often at a place and someone will come in and they're only there 5 minutes or 10 minutes. That's all they need to get to the next stop they're going to. So you do, and I'm going to talk about that. Yeah.
This is another question about the charging connector. So the EU is requiring a single charging connector for all devices. So is there any proposal in the US to require like a standard charging connector for cars? Specific to the US?
No, we have two different ones.
Okay.
Yeah, there are two different ones. One is the Tesla and the other is the CCS. Actually, there's a third one, but it's disappeared. It's the old Nissan. I had two Nissans. They have what's called CHAdeMO. And it has a huge cable with the end of the cable. And the charging station at the town hall here, which isn't working right now, has one of those, as well as the CCS has one on one side and one on the other. And if you go to First and Main behind the Starbucks, there are some new charging stations there, EVgo, and they have both CHAdeMO and CCS. You can see the difference if you go by and look at them. But Nissan new cars are not going to have that. They're going to have the CCS. They realize they've got that old CHAdeMO. Tesla came first, and Tesla and Nissan came about at the same time. My first Nissan was 2012. It came out in the United States about 2010. So they had to have their own charging setup, and they devised one. But it's going to disappear. So there are two. Basically, there are two. If you buy a used Leaf, I believe you worry about the job. Okay. I'd like to also plan the trip outside my car. There's several ways to do this. One is using plugshare.com. And you might want to write down plugshare.com and just look at it. It's got every charging station in the United States. Oh, no. But it's called a betterrouteplanner.com. And it's mainly for electric cars. It can use to and you have to set it up. You have to set it for your car. You have to set what you want for the percent charge when you start the car on a trip. And I usually set it about 98%. You specify percent charge at the next charger. For example, I usually set it about 15%. I want to have 15% when I get to that next charge. Safety. And then you specify a state of charge at the destination when you finally are getting where you want to go. Well, I'd like to have a little bit more than 15% because I might want to drive around there before I actually charge the car. So these are just numbers you have to pick when you set up the software. And then you specify many other items. For example, one I said is more stops than the car needs, because I need more stops than the car needs. And it allows you to do that. It's really a great piece of software. And then when I do this, I compare what it says to what my car says. And they don't always agree with each other. Some of them will have a different charging station to stop at, because there are a lot of choices now with the Tesla supercharger. And so typically what I do, I don't go by either one. I just look at both of them. I see what's the place I want to stop at first. And then I set my car to go to that station. They hit 15% when I get there. When I get there, before I go pee, I set the navigation system to go to the next charging station I want to go to. And they have 15% when it gets there. And that's the way I just go one by to the other. I don't know if you do that at gas stations. I don't, because you typically just look for signs. But unfortunately, I don't understand why. On the highways, you don't have signs saying no charging stations here. It's crazy. Talk to your politicians. Somebody needs to fix that. Okay. So you decide yourself what you want to do. Fully charge only overnight at home or at a hotel. That's the only time you fully charge your car. At home, I charge my car between 20 and 80%. If it gets down to near 20, sometimes 30, whatever, I just plug it in. And I have the car set so it don't go any higher than 85. All these cars have that possibility, setting what the possible charge. Before I go on a trip, I set it to about 8%. Okay. So Tesla's dominance in range and fast charging, since Tesla has a decade's lead over other car companies in developing long-range reuse and extensive, reliable, and fast expanding fast charging network of superchargers. I start with the details about how to use a Tesla for driving on long trips. Other BEVs have many similarities, so different cars will be different. So I drive a Tesla, I know how to do it with Tesla, so I'm going to use tell you. Here is a map of the Tesla superchargers. It probably is missing some new ones. I got this a few days ago off of the Tesla webpage, but they're building all the time. There's another webpage, a website I can go to that tells me where they're being permitted, and Blacksburg listed as being permitted. You have to get permits, to put in all the electricity, and where they're being constructed. So I can go to that webpage and see what things are coming up, and that's how I knew that stations are coming up at Missouri and Oklahoma. Okay. So these are very fast. They're either 150 or 250 kilowatts. They have Tesla specific plugs. And as I said, they're planning to open them up. Tesla's building more than 2 a day. And they typically have about 8 or 9 stalls in each one. One is scheduled to build in Blacksburg with 8 stalls. So how to drive a Tesla long distance, and typically be true for any BEV. Charge near 100% at home. Use Tesla navigation on the car screen. Tesla updates it regularly through over the air. And by the way, Tesla updates a lot of things over the air. And they set the standard for that. Other car companies are working hard to try to figure that out. I have had, I think, 28 updates on my car in the 4 years I've had it. And out of those 28 updates, about 15 of them gave me a new feature my car didn't have before. Really nice new features. Yeah.
Is there a charge for that?
No, it's free. That may not be true with other cars. They may charge for that. Charge that screen indicated superchargers, or more often, to the SOC needed to get to the next supercharger on the route, plus the desired reserve, somewhere, I'd say between 10 and 20%. Sometimes Tesla, when it tells you where to stop and charge, it will only give you 10% of the next one. I feel a little bit uneasy with 10%. I like to have 12 or 15%. Choose a hotel with a level 2 charging station, as I mentioned earlier. or near a supercharger to charge near 100% for the next day. Many good hotels have such called what is called destination charging stations. And you can see all those on Tesla. I'm going to show you now. Tesla shows where they are, but you have to see them on ClickShare. With a fast charging station provided by Electrify America and EVgo and other companies, similar long trips will be possible for other long range BEVs very soon. Daily even, it's increasing. They're building at about the same speed that Tesla is, about 2 a day. Tesla plans to open superchargers to other BEVs, as I said this morning. I suspect it may be over into next year, but. So what it's like to use a Tesla supercharger. You see a list of them on the large screen in your Tesla. The screen in mine is a 15-inch diagonal screen. In the more expensive cars, the screens are bigger. It's available about the number of available charging stalls and power. And as a high, by the way, Tesla plans to increase the power to 350 kilowatts. Some of these new charging stations for other cars are now going up to 350 kilowatts.
Do the lights in the town dim when everybody's charging at the same time? That's a lot of power.
There hasn't been any problem.
I'm kidding.
And well, a lot of people worried about that, but it turns out to not be a problem. The power companies will tell you that they can manage it.
Okay.
Yeah. And with all the renewable energy coming in, a lot of these charging stations now have their own solar panels. And they have batteries for nighttime charging. And Tesla plans to have that event. They're doing it in California a lot now. Their plan is to do that all over, but they haven't done it yet. And once you get solar panels on charging stations with batteries, then you don't use any local power. Okay, where are they? They're at shopping centers, hotels, and gasoline stations, shuts of sheets, and Wawa. Simply plug the Tesla in and do what you need or want to do. Payment is automatic to your credit card with plug and charge. You can use the Tesla screen while charging to play mini games, listen to music, play chess, watch TV shows or movies with Netflix, YouTube, or Hulu, and sing along with karaoke. New entertainments are constantly being added by internet like this. Now, when I bought my car, I got this free. Now you have to pay for it. And it costs, I think, $15 a month. Is that right, Tim? Is that all? $10 a month. My daughter Tamara over here drives up all of it. She has it out in the parking lot. And while you're at the restaurant eating, you can see on your smartphone how the charging's going. If it's done, you might want to go move your car because it's not nice to leave your car at a gasoline station if it's full of gas, right? What if you did that? What would happen? You shouldn't do it with a charging station. In fact, if you do it on a Tesla charging station and you stay there more than so many minutes, I forget what it is, they start charging your wait time. This is one way to keep cars from piling up. Cost, typically, I've looked at the cost across the United States, typically over 25 cents a kilowatt. It's about double what I pay in my garage. It costs money to build these charging stations. Tesla claims they're not making any money on these charging stations. They're just charging what's needed to pay for it. I don't have proof of that, but that's what they say. Okay. So how do I plan along trip? I use the a better route planner, plan the trip with the setting and more stops than the car needs, and compare the stops to the Tesla recommended stops. I use plugshare.com to study each supercharger stop. I want to know what's available at that supercharger. Is there a place to eat? Is it safe? And also, PlugShare has a trip plan. I'll show that on a later slide. So on this plugshare.com, you could read what other users have written about the facilities. They may say that this one particular stall doesn't work. So you should use that stall. You look at the last one. So because there may be some from days ago. But you look at the most recent one and see what they have to say about it. So is there a problem? Look at photos. A lot of them put photos on. From the photos, you can see where it's located relative to a grocery store or department store or whatever. Just from the photos they put on around the charging station. I find that I really pay attention to that. Because I have bad legs, have a hard time walking. With nearly a full battery, I set my final destination to see where it wants me to charge it and for how long it each stop. I compare the two routes, as I said before, I'm kind of repeating myself. And I usually add 50% for stop. That's just me. Okay, this is a trip. I just planned the trip. I didn't take it, but I just planned the trip to Key West from Blacksburg. And here's what a better route planner told me. It said I need to stop 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times before I get to Key West, Florida. Total 1,074 miles. Time is 18. Total time, including stops, is 18 hours and 47 minutes. So including stops, I would average 57 miles per hour. Of course, I might stop longer than that. What often happens to me, I need maybe 15 minutes of charging. So I go and in 20 minutes, I come back. I set up to charge to a certain amount, 80%, but once it hits 80, well, no. Once it goes past what I need, it will keep going. That's what I'm trying to say. And so when I get back, I actually have more than I need to get to the next exit, which means the next time I stop, I don't need as much. And that often happens at station after station because I spend more time out than I need than the car needs to charge. Sometimes I do have to come back to the car and spend 5 minutes in the car before it's ready to go. The charging duration for this trip of 1,074 miles was 1 hour and 54 minutes for all those charges. That average is 565 miles per hour charging. You're charging miles per hour. In fact, the 250 kilowatt charging station starts off at 1,000 miles per hour. But then it falls off. Driving duration then was 16 hours and 52 minutes or 64 miles per hour driving average. They were assuming that I was driving the speed limit, I think. I might be driving more than the speed. As I said, I usually go 5 over. So the intervals were 134 miles, the average interval between those charging stations, 2.3 hours per interval, and 14 minutes average per charge at each charging station. Yes.
When you were plugging in a proposed trip, do they take into account things like presumption of other things that draw power, like air conditioning, or do you manually do that? I know that affects it quite a bit, right?
Can you?
Yeah, does air conditioning and other accessories that are driving that car, does that affect?
Just like in a
driving time?
gasoline car, exactly the same way.
Well, it doesn't come, the gasoline car doesn't get affected. You would think.
But I'm just saying the amount of energy used.
Really?
Yeah, except actually it's less because Tesla has developed a heat pump for their cars. I didn't have it in my car. I had a heat pump for the cooling, but I used the heat from the motor. That's how I heated the car, heat from the motor.
Yeah.
Now her car has a new heat pump. It's very big, very small. And they say it's the most efficient heat pump anybody's ever developed. And that's how they can do the heating and cooling. And so it affects, of course, but typically because of the fact that you worry about car running out of charge, every car company is trying to be as efficient as they can on. Whereas gasoline cars don't worry about it so much.
I think the part of her question was that are these mileages and all of these, does it take into account accessory use?
It probably, yes, I think it does on the day you, and I don't know what the day was. Yeah. In fact, Tesla does that. They take account elevations. They take account wind. Yeah.
Because you got the temperature. of the
And they
batteries.
know which way the wind's blowing, where you are by GPS.
Oh,
And they, you know, they're mathematical, scientific car company.
So if you plan a trip across Texas in July, you get different results than if you plan a trip across Texas in January.
It'd be different.
Okay.
You might have to stop one more time. Going up.
which affects it more, heat or cold?
Cold. Cold affects it. Batteries are happiest at about 76 Fahrenheit.
So,
So the cost on this trip, they calculate the cost on this trip, the software did, it said it's $46. If you have an ICE at 35 miles per gallon or $4 a gallon, it'd be $123. These superchargers used here, two of them were 150 kilowatts and 5 of them were 250 kilowatts. So 5 of them were pretty good superchargers. Okay, I planned the same trip using PlugShare, and PlugShare does it differently. I didn't go ahead and do the whole thing, but they show all the superchargers you can stop at. And then I guess they let you choose which ones you want. And there are 31 they show that you could stop at. There are a few more that are a few miles off, maybe more than 10 miles off the highway. Yes, sir.
How often do you find that you pull up to one of those SC and all the plugs are taken?
That's the same question he asked.
Okay.
I've never,
Yeah, I've got the same here problem you do.
I've never had that, I've never had it happen. I pulled into one once when they were full and the guy pulled out just as I was pulling. But in California, they have had that problem in the past, particularly on holidays. Holidays is when you worry about it. But they're building them like I'm at. And but eventually I would say within the next 2 or 3 years, there will never be a problem. You'll have so many, just like gasoline stations. You don't need as many as gasoline stations because you charge at home. You don't need to go to a gasoline station to charge at home because you charge at home. So I think very quickly that problem will be gone. And I've never seen it in my trips that I talked about or in this area. I've never, I don't use the supercharger. It's there. Okay, so I guess you just pick the superchargers you want, just like you can pick a gasoline station if you want with this. So here's a map of the destination chargers that Tesla has put across the United States. They have 2 at the Marriott, what do they call it out here on South Main? There are 2 of those in the front. Tesla put those in. I think there were more than 2. I think there were 4 actually. And in the Holiday Station, Holiday Inn Station across from the mall, Christiansburg, there are 2 there. Tesla put in. And when they put them in, I was the first car to charge there. I went over. They had me come over and said, take pictures. With my lead. Not that many people had electric cars in the day. But anyway, you can see that there are places that are not available in the United States. There are a lot of things not available in the United States. Okay. So they're there for all electric cars. They're usually they put in both Teslas and J1772s. Now, Electrify America. Electrify America is really the top company that's building charging stations for other BEVs. And the reason they have this company, it's a subsidiary of Volvo, and not Volvo. VW. And the reason VW got in trouble with dealers, remember Dieselgate?
Yeah.
They were required to spend, I think it was $4 billion United States for more electric cars. And I think 2 billion of that was building charging stations. So they set up this company called Electrify America. And here's what they have right now. There's still, there may be a few missing that have just been built. Because they're building them very fast. In fact, if I show you the next slide, here's what they're saying their future looks like, near future. I think they say by the end of 2025, they will have this many charging stations. These are all CCS stations. And once Tesla gives me, lets me buy, I'll have to buy it. Once it lets me buy an adapter to use these stations, I can use these too, as well as all the supercars. And then all the other cars, if they have an adapter, they can use the Tesla. So all electric cars will have wonderful setup for charging stations. You'll never have to worry about backup. If you have backup on a Tesla, you'll go over to Electrify America. Electrify America, they have one in Whitfield. They have one in exit 157 north of Roanoke. Man,
Between the gray circles and the purple circles on the, last slide.
the difference between what? The gray ones, the ones they're gonna build. Yeah, and see, they come up now.
I'm sorry.
Why would Tesla buy an adapter now? I think we buy an adapter now.
They have an adapter in Korea. And several people, I could actually buy that adapter. However, my car is an old Tesla. You know, I don't want to get into weeds here, but I have to have a electric motor change in the plug-in. That part of my car to really use that adapter. 2019 on, you don't. So I'm the only one that can't use it that. So that's the reason I don't have it. Otherwise I would have it. But there are people that we can get them for Korea.
So if you bought a new car, adapter,
You bought a new one, well, they don't have that adapter yet, you know. You get the Korean one.
no, I mean, you have the car.
No, it doesn't come to that. You have to buy it.
On a trip, how long do you usually typically stay at the level 2 station, charge your car, how much does it cost?
Well, it's 25 cents, the average is about 25 cents a kilowatt hour.
So what is that translate to dollars?
Is typically when I stop, I'm usually paying $3 to $7.
How long do you stay there at the station?
Maybe 15 minutes. I would average about 15. Would you say that 10 minutes?
What percentage does that equate to?
What
What percentage of charge does that equate to?
I really don't pay attention to that. I don't care.
You said you just needed to make sure you had enough to get to the next station.
I look at the percent. I'm gonna have 50%. I think my time is up.
I was gonna say, Dave, we're about out of time. Is there anything you want to say about the vehicles that people
Well,
can see?
Out in the parking lot, I think we have a Model 3, a new one. A guy named Sean Lester should be out there with one. It's white. And then my daughter has her blue Y out there. And I believe Eric Sandberg has his Rivian pickup truck. Maybe you heard about the Rivian. I've not seen it yet, so I'm anxious for I see it.
And your E-Track is there too, right?
E-Track, and I thought that we have a two e-bike, E-Track. There he is. Hugh Osmus over here. He's my travel buddy. He and I travel together in E-Track. We're pushing hard for seniors to get E-Tracks. It's a lot better way to get exercise than biking in your bedroom. I was biking in my bedroom. I can't, well, I used to hike a lot. I can't do that so much anymore, but I can bike.
Yeah, it's an impressive vehicle. Make sure you check it out. I think we're gonna have to stop now. So people can see those. But he is a local treasurer, obviously, so let's see. If we can-
If anybody wants to contact me with further questions, you email roperld@bp.com.
Right.